I went to Chick-fil-A the other day. This was actually a few weeks ago, but I didn't even think much of it at first because what I saw was actually completely normal. But for some reason, it seems like most women refuse to believe that this kind of thing happens. So I went to Chick-fil-A with my mom and my cousin. Usually I would just go through the drive-through, but my mom wanted to eat there, so that's what we did. But anyways, when I was ordering, I noticed that the cashier was this attractive young lady. She wasn't like Giga Stacy, she didn't look like supermodel or anything, but she was good looking for sure. I was actually surprised she was working there because just from her looks alone, I'm pretty sure she could easily get some BS corporate job in HR or something. And I'm pretty sure she wasn't still in high school or anything. She had to be at least 20 something because she was a manager. I think she was probably the lowest level of manager, but I don't think they let teenagers do that job. And she looked like she was probably in her 20s. But anyways, so we ordered our food and we were going to sit outside because it was a nice day and they have an outdoor dining area. So my mom took my cousin to wait at the table and I was waiting inside for our food to come out. Then I see this car pull up. Actually, I heard it first. That's why I looked, but it was a bright orange Corvette. I'm not really a car guy, but I'm pretty sure it was a new one, probably a 2026 model. And I don't think it was the base model either because it had a huge spoiler. But I don't know. Maybe that's just how they come. So the Corvette parks, and this guy gets out wearing what looks to be an expensive suit. I'm not a suit guy either, so I don't really know, but it looked tailored. And I would say the guy was pretty good looking. Young guy, probably mid to late 20s or early 30s, about 6 feet tall. I'm guessing he was pretty well off, judging from the car and the suit. Probably a lawyer or something, I would guess, since he had a suit. And it obviously wasn't Sunday when this happened, since this all happened at Chick-fil-A. So the suit had to have been for work. So this hotshot Corvette guy walks in and immediately he's hitting on this attractive cashier and she was smiling and everything. So then my food comes out. So I went and got it and I went outside where my mom and my cousin were. Then I had to go back inside to get some Chick-fil-A sauce. So I was kind of standing there awkwardly waiting for someone to notice me so I could ask for some sauce. The hot cashier girl was busy getting chatted up by the Corvette guy, and I guess he had already asked her out or asked for her number or something, because when I got over there, he was telling her, like, yeah, we don't know each other yet, but we could get to know each other. I don't remember the exact wording, but he was kind of doing that whole thing. But she turned him down, and then he pulls out a business card and he tries to hand it to her, and he's like, well, if you change your mind, you can shoot me a text, blah, blah, blah. I don't remember exactly what he said, but it was something along those lines. So then some other worker saw me and asked me what I wanted. So I didn't really see the rest of the interaction, but I'm pretty sure she was refusing to take his card. So here's this good looking guy who, by all appearances, seems to be doing very well for himself. He's got an expensive car, nice fitted suit, and from what I could hear, he seemed to be a good talker. He was acting confident right from the start. He didn't hesitate at all. So this guy has very high sexual market value, very high SMV. I'm sure he does very well with the ladies. But here he is at Chick-fil-A, and he's trying to get with the shift manager at Chick-fil-A. And she turned him down. Now, most of you listening to this, if you're someone that regularly watches my videos, or if you're just a guy, then you're probably thinking, okay, so what? That sounds completely normal. A guy was hitting on an attractive woman. That's what happens. And I agree. It is completely normal. But the reason we understand that that's normal, and we can see that very easily, is because we're men and we don't have our heads buried in the sand. So anyways, after we got done eating, My mom wanted to order some more chicken nuggets to go, and while we were waiting for that to come out, another guy comes in and starts hitting on this girl. He asked for her number, and she rejected that guy too. But this guy also looked like he was probably pretty well off. He was a younger guy, kind of had the whole frat boy look. And both of the guys that I saw hitting on this girl, I would say were probably at least her looks match. But judging from appearances, they were both probably from a higher social class than she was, seeing as how she works at Chick-fil-A. So I didn't really think anything of it, completely normal thing to say. Guys hitting on a good-looking girl. You see it every day. And I worked in fast food for years, and I saw this exact same thing happening all the time. A couple of the girls I worked with would have guys asking for their number literally multiple times per day, every single shift. And that's not even an exaggeration. It happened every single time they worked. I mean, I'm sure there were probably some random days here and there where they never got asked out, but it definitely happened most of the time. I think it's just obvious to most men that we don't really care that much about a woman's status as far as how much money she makes, what kind of background she comes from, and all that. Those things just really don't matter. What matters is how good-looking a woman is and how pleasant she is to be around. But so many women these days seem to think that the way to attract a man is to be really successful in their career. Or I don't know if they actually believe that's attractive to men, or if they just think that being successful means they deserve a successful, good-looking man. So many women these days act like it's impossible to find a good man, and they wonder why they never get approached, or they can never find any guys on the apps that meet their ridiculous standards, and it's like, duh. It's because you're focusing on your career over all the things that men actually care about, such as dressing and acting feminine and, I don't know, maybe having an interesting personality. You're focusing on all the wrong things. Modern women will be making $100,000 a year at their software engineering job. Front end, obviously. Female programmers mostly just do things like pick out the font and complain that there's not enough inclusive language in the company's internal memos. I'm just joking, by the way. I'm sure there's lots of female programmers out there working on the back end, screwing things up. But anyways, modern women will be working at their high-paying jobs that they got special consideration for during the hiring process just because of their gender. Then they'll say things like, I make $115,000 a year. I'm highly successful. Where are all the men? Why can't I find the man that I deserve? Well, ma'am, see, the thing is, men do not care how prestigious your job title is or how much you make. All the good men are at Chick-fil-A or anywhere else trying to holler at chicks that are better looking and less pretentious than you. I can only speak for myself, but, theoretically, I would think it's cool if a woman I was dating had an interesting job that paid well. I don't think that's inherently a bad thing, but the problem is, I know that a lot of those career-focused women in those kinds of jobs are just super high maintenance. They'll never say it, but they look down on less successful men. That's just how it is. They would never admit it, but it's just a fact that most women only want to date men that earn more than they do. That's why the more educated a woman is and the more a woman earns, the more likely she is to be single. Because successful women have sky-high standards, and there's not a lot of men that meet those standards. And the men that do meet those standards, they don't give a shit what the woman's job is. Those guys are trying to get with the Chick-fil-A cashier because she looks good, and it got them all bricked up the way she said, "It was my pleasure to serve you." I think there's a few reasons for this disconnect women have where they just can't seem to understand the simplicity of what men actually value. Part of it is just because women are so hypergamous and they value status so much, they just assume it's the same for men. They all want a man that makes six figures, has a nice car, treats them to expensive meals and vacations and all that. So they think men must want the same thing from a woman, when really, most men would only see those things as a bonus. Women see these things as a prerequisite for entering a relationship. But for us men, all the money and status and everything is just a bonus. What we want as men is a woman that's going to be nice to us, let us hit it regularly, and not be super argumentative all the time. So if you think about it, really, we're probably the ones with the more unrealistic standards, because if you find a woman these days that meets all those requirements, then you hit the jackpot. But seriously, that's one reason women don't understand men. They just can't fathom someone having different values than they do. Another reason is there's so much propaganda in our society promoting the general notion of female empowerment, female independence, female freedom of choice, freedom to live like a man, basically, while also still benefiting from traditional gender roles when it benefits them, like in how they insist on only dating men that have the means to provide for them. But because there's all this propaganda aimed at propping females up as leaders and innovators and career-driven high-income earners, women will go that route and they'll think, well, I'm doing everything I've always been told that I'm supposed to do, so why can I not attract a man that meets my standards? And I'm sure a lot of this propaganda is well-intentioned, especially when that sort of thing first started gaining traction. The idea was just to make women aware that they could choose to be independent if that's what they choose to do, but most women don't actually want that. But the propaganda is so ever-present in our society, it's gotten to the point that's the only option girls feel like they have, to go the girl boss route. Obviously, it depends a lot on social class, but I think it's true for most of the population nowadays. Women are basically brainwashed into thinking that pursuing a career is the ultimate goal, and it's the only way to live. Then they get a little older, on into their late 20s and 30s, and that's when a lot of women realize, okay, I hate this. I hate working. I just want to start a family and stay home and look after the kids. But at that point, their options are already dwindling. I mean, really, they still have tons of options. There's an insane amount of men these days that are chronically single and absolutely desperate. But those men aren't seen as options, if they're even seen as human at all. Because even when these ladies realize they've all been led astray, they might realize that what society's been telling them they should value isn't what they actually value for themselves in their own lives anymore, but they are hypergamous by nature. That is a biological thing. So once they've hit that high income and they've got that prestigious job title, that's it. Their standards are going to be that high from that point on. You know, there's no putting the cat back in the bag. So when I see these guys that look like they're super successful and they're all well put together and everything, and I see them trying to spit game at the girl working the counter at Chick-fil-A, that hardly even registers to me. That's just normal. The girl's occupation is irrelevant. Is she attractive? Yes. Okay then, you can expect her to end up with a so-called high-value man. Now, she might choose to mess around with a good-looking loser instead. Looks are still the most effective way for a man to attract women, but attractive women have so many options. Usually, they'll have a number of good-looking guys to choose from, and some of them will probably be high-income earners. So, yeah, a guy that's good-looking but low status, say he works at Jiffy Lube or something like that, he'll still do all right for himself, but his options will be limited, especially for long-term relationships. But a good-looking woman with a low-status job, there's no limit there to her options. And in fact, she might have more options than one of these career-driven girl boss types. Because as men, I think most of us, even if it's only subconsciously, we understand that the girl boss type is probably going to be high maintenance and is just going to give us more trouble. Look at Cristiano Ronaldo and his fiancée. They met when Ronaldo was shopping at the Gucci store and his future fiancée was working there as a sales associate. Now, this is the Gucci store, so it's a bit higher class than working at JCPenney or something like that. But according to a Google search, Gucci store sales reps make somewhere around $20 to $25 an hour, plus commission. So maybe with commission, the money's not bad, but still, this is Cristiano Ronaldo we're talking about. The guy is a household name, even in America, where nobody even watches the sport he plays. He's pretty much as successful as you could possibly imagine. And he's good looking. He could have essentially any woman he wants. But he chose to go with a relatively low status woman that's never even attended a university. Why? Because she was young and attractive. And I'm guessing she probably had a pleasant personality, so he liked being around her. It's as simple as that. But think about the reverse. Can you think of any example of a world-famous, wealthy, and attractive woman that's in a long-term relationship with a guy that works retail? Like, try to find an example of a female pop star in a long-term relationship with a regular guy that's making like, I don't know, 70 grand a year at most. Try to imagine a good-looking guy working as a shift manager at Chick-fil-A. And he's not like Jeremy Meeks or anything. I'm just talking about a regular, good-looking guy. You know, he's above average, but he's not going to be a professional model. Imagine a man in that position working at Chick-fil-A. How well do you think he's going to do romantically? Do you think he's going to have women hitting on him when they order their chicken nuggets? He probably wouldn't even be able to get laid using Tinder, unless maybe he lied about his job. There is a certain level of looks where if a guy is just so attractive, he probably could clean up even if he worked at Chick-fil-A. But the girl I saw the other day, her looks match, if he worked the same job, he would probably be about as successful as I am with the ladies. As in, he would have no success whatsoever. Okay, so water is wet. Women only like guys that make more money than they do. Men will put a ring on the finger of the Waffle House waitress if she looks good. Yada yada. We all know this. But it never fails to amaze me how all these highly successful girl bosses just can never seem to figure out why it is they aren't getting attention from the right guys. Even when they aren't completely masculine, why would a man that actually has options choose to go for a career woman over a woman that's easier to please? Assuming all else is equal, so let's say there's two women that are equally attractive, same age and everything, but one of them is a corporate consultant with 2 master's degrees making $150,000 a year, and the other is a barista at Starbucks. I'm going for the barista every single time. Easy decision. Because you can probably assume that the corporate consultant chick is going to be much higher maintenance. She's going to expect fancy restaurants, nice cars, new clothes all the time, probably will get mad at you if you don't buy her flowers every time she's on her special time of the month. The barista is probably going to be a lot easier to please, just a lot more chill and relaxed. And it's that simple. It is that simple. Their income is completely irrelevant, other than what it signals about how high maintenance they are. Also, tell me in the comments if you think I'm wrong, but it seems to me like it's not super uncommon for a high-earning man to stay frugal. Like my supervisor at my old job as an engineer, for example, I mean, he wasn't rich or anything, but I'm guessing he was probably making well into 6 figures at least. This was about 10 years ago now, so adjusted for inflation, that might be closer to $200,000 a year. But he drove a shitty 10-year-old Mercury to work most days, and when it was nice out, he would ride his bike to work. And I've known several guys that were like that. They'll drive a car into the ground, and they'll dress head to toe in clothes they bought at Walmart, even when they're earning in the top 10%. But I don't think I've ever heard of a high-income earning woman that didn't drive an expensive car and have other expensive habits. Women just have expensive taste in general. That probably has something to do with why they all have such high standards. I think part of it is because since they refuse to consider dating any man that they think is beneath their status, these professional ladies they either have a husband that makes even more than they do, or they believe they will eventually have a husband that makes more than they do. So that's like double income, at least. Most men, such as my former supervisor, his wife didn't work at all. A lot of successful men's wives, if they do work, then it's part-time or they'll be in a relatively low-paying profession. So men are pragmatic. We fellas, we gotta be frugal. But women don't have to be frugal. I have never in my life heard of a frugal floozy. Ain't no such thing as a frugal floozy. I freaking swear. No, whatever. So basically, most high-income earning women actually have a higher household income when you include how much their husband is earning. So they actually have more money available to them than a man would that is earning a similar income. But back to the topic at hand. Ladies, if there are any of you listening to this, if you want to maximize your chances of starting a family someday and living a fulfilling life where you get to raise the next generation instead of toiling away in a cubicle prompting ChatGPT to respond to emails for you, then listen. I'm going to tell you what you need to do. You need to focus on looks maxing, as in don't be fat. Like that's pretty much it. That's all you got to do as far as looks maxing goes. And you need to just settle for a guy that cares about you as soon as possible, because the older you get, the less desirable you get. And no man on this planet gives a rat's ass what your job title is. I promise you that. But men do care about how wrinkly your face is. And try to be more agreeable with any man that you date if you think he's a keeper, because no man wants to come home after a hard day's work just to get nagged about not fixing the ceiling fan yet. That shit's not even that important, and you probably never even used it before it broke. If anything I said here resonates with you, please consider watching some of my other videos. There's also some videos you can watch for free on my Patreon page that were banished here on YouTube. You don't even have to sign up. You can just watch them on Patreon for free. So check that out. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.